Kayla.
I'm Melissa.
And this is the Christie Club.
What is your favorite kind of chocolate? And our friendship does depend on what you say. There are wrong answers.
Oh my gosh. Okay, rude. Okay, definitely nothing with caramel in it. I do like hazelnuts in the chocolate, you know?
Yeah.
But if I am having like one of those like chocolate balls, I really like the stuff with like a berry or something inside. It's like a nice
Fruit
treat.
and chocolate go so well together.
Yes.
Okay. But if it's between dark, milk, and white chocolate.
Milk. White's disgusting and dark is just too bitter.
I disagree, but we can still be friends as long as you didn't say white chocolate.
Okay. And
I'm a firm believer in that dark chocolate is the only right answer because it's the one that's the most chocolate. If you like milk chocolate, all you like is the sugar and the cream.
that's basically what chocolate is nowadays.
Yeah, but I think... Okay, anyway.
They add chocolate to way too many things, like protein bars, or like cereal, or it's like, oh, hello, I would like an English muffin. Oh, would you like chocolate version? It's like, no, I just want a muffin, you know? So much chocolate just everywhere nowadays.
I'm not complaining.
Well, maybe if they poison their chocolate.
Oh my gosh, wait, that reminds me of the short story we just read, The Chocolate Box by Agatha Christie. So, The Chocolate Box was first published in 1923, which is the earliest short story we have read. And do you know when Agatha Christie wrote her first book?
The first Poirot book, Mysterious Affairs
Yeah.
at Styles, that was 1920.
So this is
3 years after.
So we're looking very early.
Yeah. This short story features the cast of characters. Well, actually, this one is very interesting because it's technically a conversation between Captain Hastings, the Dr. Watson, right, and Poirot, and Poirot himself narrates it, so it's in the first person for a big chunk of it. But aside from them two, the cast of characters include Monsieur... Oh, by the way, we are going to be giving you an anglicized pronunciation because I do not trust my abilities.
I can't say French names. I can't say names in general, so...
So our pronunciation will not be the original French version. I'm sorry. Letting you know in advance. So Monsieur Derillard, he is the victim, and his dead wife, Madame Derillard. And then we have Virginia Mesnard. She is like the cousin of the dead wife, the young cousin of the dead wife. And then old Madame Derillard, who is the mother of Monsieur Derillard. And then we have guests of the Derillard household
that were there when he died.
And they are therefore considered suspects. Monsieur de Saint-Allard and Mr. John Wilson, who is British. Yeah.
So, who goes straight? Who was the murderer?
Oh, the murderer.
Or should we explain clues?
Let's explain clues.
I have one the biggest clue is always in the name. I've learned this now.
Mm-hmm.
The chocolate box.
Dun, dun, dun.
In that he was poisoned through chocolate in this chocolate box. Mm-hmm. And the biggest clue that Poirot misses or doesn't fully
comprehend the significance
of is that the chocolate box have the wrong lid on them.
Mm-hmm. That there were originally two. One was completely blue, the other completely pink, and the one that he sees in the study, I believe, is like blue
box with a pink lid.
And a pink lid.
I like those colors together.
I love that it's just the like conflict between those colors that catches his eye, and he's like, oh, this is so incongruent or whatever, and like this must be a clue.
Okay, so Poirot thinks the murderer is
Monsieur de Saint-Allard.
I was gonna let you say it. Yes, but in this, he is actually wrong, and we find out the true murderer is
his mother. What? Dun, dun, dun.
His mom?
His own mom.
Women's instinct comes up.
Oh yes, first thing. I caught that too.
And this comes up a lot throughout the books. Like, women always have an instinct They're like, I just feel this. And usually they're right, which is the thing. But that's not,
it's not always the case. And later, I'm pretty sure, Christie kind of discards that a little bit.
A little more?
To make things a little bit more interesting, I guess.
Sure, but at least in these earlier books, or in this book, they don't have no reason for coming to Poirot, but they just know something. And I don't know what to think about it, so I wanted your thoughts on this idea. Because I haven't seen this in any other books. Not that I've read a lot of other books in the 1940s, or, why am I picking the 40s? This is the 20s.
20s, or 40s.
And not that I've read, actually, that many other mystery books either.
I feel like it also was present in Sherlock Holmes books.
Really? So this is like an older thing.
Sure. I think it's mostly like a social kind of belief.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just faded out maybe throughout the years. But it also kind of, in her books, it kind of feels a little bit more like woman empowerment almost.
Sure.
But it doesn't exactly have like a reasonable foundation, which is a little funky.
I mean, it's, I think, just a easy plot device.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess that's why it comes up so often. But I was wondering if there was, like, a social thing. But I don't know.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Okay. It was interesting, the use of religion throughout this thing.
Yes. That
also,
is very strong.
is Poirot Catholic?
Yes. He said...
I did not know that.
Bon catholique.
Yeah.
He's like a good Catholic. And actually, this is kind of a side note. In the Poirot TV show, there's their episode of The Murder on the Orient Express is very centralized on Poirot's Catholicism, which they never really leaned on it before, and it wasn't even present in the book, but they made it a much bigger part of his character and personality. And they had several like insert shots of him holding like a rosary and like praying.
Yeah, because it is interesting when religion comes in with murder mysteries, because there's a lot of, I don't know, good versus evil kind of stuff. Poirot's about justice. But in this book, he doesn't actually...
he also decides not to bring the murderer to legal justice. He kind of leaves it to the world. Powers, higher religious forces, I suppose.
Yeah.
To, like, just take on that role.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, and I kind of saw the good versus evil undertones kind of ringing in his descriptions of other people as good. Like he says, he's a good Catholic. The girl was a good girl, not like a nice girl, not a pretty girl. She was a good girl. He even described himself as a good dog.
That was weird.
On the stand, and I was like, that's not Poirot. He's a cat. He's not a dog. He's not Sherlock Holmes sitting on the floor. And I also found it interesting that, you know, this case was, since it's an earlier one, and he's still, like, he's
more active.
Yeah, he's more like the police.
He even pretended to be a plumber. That's very unlike Poirot
be
so active and
an actor.
Investigating. He was the actor. Maybe that's why he made a mistake.
Yeah, so maybe he's changed his methods since then. And I also found that it's really strange that this whole, like, first-person point of view, it was... I don't know. I was really intrigued by it at first.
Yeah.
But then I kind of found that, like, as it kind of went along, it felt like there was a lot of British terminology. I mean, he does use British words quite often, but it was a little harder for me to imagine his voice as, like, Poirot's voice for some reason. I don't know why, but, like, the phrase "I fancied" just kind of stood out to me, and I was like, that's so British. Maybe it's just how I perceive British, and, yeah. And then towards the end, you got a little bit more, because earlier he even said "my friend," and he does say "my friend," but I'm used to him saying, like, "mon ami." So then towards the end, you see more of his phrases. Like, the last several pages are much more full of his French phrases again.
I thought the framing of this story with him talking to Hastings, and it starting and ending with that, was really nice and fun.
It felt like we were just kind of sitting with them by the fire as he was kind of telling us about it.
Yeah, and the dynamic between Hastings and Poirot is fun.
Yes.
So.
Yes, but at the same time, like, you can get lost in the story as well.
Yes, exactly.
It wasn't as captivating, I would say, as other stories.
No, I thought the whole story was kind of boring.
Yeah.
I have a whole thing that why Agatha Christie wrote this story, because the whole thing is this is Poirot, not one of Poirot's successes. You know, he fails to figure out who the murderer is. The murderess has to confess to him.
Uh-huh.
She was like, oh no. And he got it wrong. I think Agatha Christie wrote this story because she wanted to show that Poirot is capable of mistakes and has made mistakes in the past.
Yes.
But do you think it's better for your detective to be, is infallible the right word?
Mm-hmm.
Is
like
it flawless? Because up until everything else we've read, Poirot always, figures it out in the end. Mm-hmm. But I kind of didn't like it that he made a mistake. It wasn't I didn't find it very interesting because the fact that he didn't figure out the murderer, right? She confessed to him. It was like, oh. And there wasn't any, that much dramatics with it. And I was like, this is why stories always have him figure it out. Because it's no fun when he doesn't figure it out.
I mean, I thought it was perfectly fine because it was set when he was younger and when he was still in Belgium. And it was him kind of, reflecting on his younger days. And it's kind of those experiences that brought him to where he is as his wise self, Yeah. And I mean, I admired that he wanted Hastings to know the story and to write the story. He wanted his failure to be known, and he's not like some, I don't know, modern politician where they're trying to pretend to be flawless gods over here.
Sure. Maybe I just want him to be the.
Yeah. People have that tendency. They tend to want to put people on a pedestal to know that certain things are capable.
I think Agatha Christie is trying to take him off that pedestal, but for me, I'm like, just leave him up there. It wasn't an interesting story when he doesn't figure it out, and when he gets it wrong, and I was like, go back to the stories where he's just a genius.
So that one thing, if he had eventually suspected the mother, you think that would have made it a lot more interesting?
I actually think it would have. Because he would have been, we're all thinking it's this one guy, right? And then he would have been, no! And it would have been so dramatic, I love the melodrama. And then he would have been like, it's actually the mom. And I would have been like, oh! And you still get a kind of a moment when she reveals it, but it's just not as powerful coming from her. It's like, oh, Poirot didn't do anything. He didn't have any, there wasn't agency in figuring it out. And so it wasn't as fun. And I would have liked the story better, even though it would have not shown that Poirot made a mistake. I kind of I like it when he figures it out the story, because when he doesn't, it's not as interesting.
I suppose. No,
which is why I don't think she does that for her other books.
Yeah.
Now, the thing he does make mistakes on, though, is he figures out stuff too late that other people get murdered in the meantime.
Or he doesn't prevent certain things. And
he could have prevented. Yeah. So I feel like, and that can happen in stories that at least raise the stakes, in a way that he makes mistakes. But I still need that dramatic ending where he figures it all out and explains it to us. That happened in this book, but when he doesn't figure it out, it wasn't the same.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I definitely understand where you're coming from. Yeah, it's not as exciting to have him figure it out. But to have him, and it was a little bit different to have us kind of go along with him, and we believe him so much. And so when he says, I've figured out this murder, and then he's wrong, it's like, man, you let us down. I mean, usually when he feels the truth,
it's not until he 100% knows.
Yeah, he has us in the end, though. And we kind of trust him blindly, but at a distance. But this time we're with him, and he's with us in being disappointed in himself. Yeah. So it's. I mean, he didn't seem super crestfallen that he had gotten it wrong. It was definitely weird. It was a weird experience for him to be, like that.
And I feel like a person like Poirot, I mean, I think it makes sense. It's fine because it's earlier. But if this would have happened and he gets it wrong, I feel like he would go crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I'm not the greatest mind. Which he says.
And I love the ending. I absolutely adored the ending. And how he explained later to Hastings, didn't you see? I should have known from the beginning because she had bad eyesight, so she could have been the only one to misplace the lid of the box, And how he's kind of critiquing himself. But that's something that everyone does, right?
Yes.
And even he does in different stories and different novels too. He kind of.
I like when he makes mistakes like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But it didn't take him, he didn't realize it too late. He just never realized it. And
At
so
all.
It was only with hindsight that he could have actually seen his errors. But I like how he left the woman
alone.
Yeah.
He did not turn her into the police in this one.
Yes.
I like that too. And
it
then
was
she
a
ends up
little
just...
strange that she called him to tell him.
Yes,
but
it was. Well, okay, the reason she did is she didn't want the other guy. He was going to say it's the other guy.
Yeah.
And she didn't want him to get...
So technically she saved Poirot from an even bigger mistake.
Oh, yeah, she
an
did.
innocent man.
Which also go her is that, like, she outsmarted Poirot in a way. And she is just an old woman.
She's like, I didn't even mean to fight him. I just used to just get rid of it, you know?
Yeah.
Get rid of the evidence.
Like, she could have almost gotten away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a better person, because, I don't know, and religion comes into that too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a good character for her, at least. I don't know.
Yeah, and... I mean, I guess since you've told me so much about Agatha Christie and her knowledge of poisons, it kind of felt like she was kind of showing that off.
Oh, she was in this book.
Yeah, I don't get the show-offy vibes so much from her, just because Poirot usually steals the spotlight. So Agatha herself, I couldn't really tell. But yeah, it was a lot of like poison and like terminology and that stuff that Poirot didn't even know. He's like, "What are you talking about?" It's like. It's too normal, man. And so I thought that was funny, and that was at least enjoyable as he was making his investigation.
Another part of how to survive an Agatha Christie novel. My next thing is have good eyesight.
Yes.
First of all, also in another one of our stories, the person who had bad eyesight also was a murderer.
The glasses, yeah.
Glasses.
No, it was he
had good eyesight.
He was pretending to be a guy with bad eyesight, so he was wearing glasses.
Either way, eyesight was an issue, and the person who had bad eyesight ended up dying. Mm-hmm. So my advice: have good eyesight.
You don't want to be a murderer, and yeah.
And then my other advice is don't confess. Don't tell Poirot you did the murder.
No, tell him, because he'll be more empathetic. He's not like Holmes, who will be like, "You're gone." I mean, I'm sure there were some parts where Holmes...
I mean, she still ended up dying.
Yes, but it was kind of peaceful again. He kind of left it. She had a good line there, too. She was like, "I'm already going to answer for God. Do I have to do it on Earth, too?"
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that was a good line. Oh, another good line of hers. Oh, my God. Oh, I had given, because she murdered her son, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had given him life. I was responsible for him. And what I really was expecting to see after I had given him life was, it was now my duty to take it away.
Yeah.
That would have been such a great melodramatic line. Maybe a little bit too much, but I don't know. I was waiting for that and it didn't come, but I was like, it's
Oh,
fine.
and so the reason, just explaining, she killed her son is because he killed his wife, and she's the only one who saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and instead of going to the police because they wouldn't believe her and all other stuff, she decided just to kill him before he was going to kill another person?
He was going to, like, supposedly ruin the soul of the cousin of his wife.
Yes.
Because the cousin was...
And he was going to be a really high position in government, and he was anti-Catholic.
Mm-hmm. In France, where they were at the time apparently dealing with conflict between the state and the church. I didn't know about that. I kind of wish
we don't really know.
I wish we learned more about this stuff, just in any country, honestly. But yeah, no, I absolutely loved that her motive was, it showed like a woman looking out for other women. Even if it
meant, it was. Even if it meant over her son.
Her own
murdering her own son. But it did feel right.
yeah, because she was like, I'm not going to enable him any further, because he's already like this privileged, entitled man who's just taking advantage where he can.
Not enabling men and murdering children.
Yeah. And it's not like some personal affront that he like committed against her.
Yes.
It was to others. So I thought that was very compassionate of her. Yeah, and she just decided to take the matters of justice into her own hands.
Although, I don't know, I'm not Catholic, but wouldn't, like, murdering someone be, like, the worst thing you could possibly do? So that came up to me, and I was like,
well,
no, she did have lines
right?
about answering before God, but I was like, I don't know if, like, murdering your son was the answer to this. Maybe you should have just gone to the police.
That's where religion gets tricky, because there have been so many arguments and so many wars backed by the forces of religion. I'm committing this murder, or I'm, committing this crusade in the name of my religion.
Yeah, and it's weird.
Right? I'm conquering these countries in the name of my religion.
Like,
so those are all justified because you have the name of religion behind you. And that's why it was such a big
I don't think you're supposed to murder people.
Well, I mean, it brings up that question, right? Which is pretty great. It's getting us thinking. Again, so she just felt she had this duty to someone else who was murdered by him. And
but she could have solved that by
a different way. So
by not murdering him and finding up other ways for him to go to jail or figure out what he did.
And that kind of relates to like
there's a lot of other ways I feel like to solve this.
That kind of relates to like all the questions or the debates about like death penalty, right? Is it really an eye for an eye, or can we have like different sorts of punishment? But
there's another way to make him not murder more people. But not by murdering him.
I feel like she also, when she said, I'm responsible for him, it's like she kind of, in some way, I mean, I kind of wish she went into this more, like, she in some way must have contributed to his belief that it was okay for him to do that.
Well, she probably feels guilty for the way she raised him, because she raised a murderer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like this is kind of funny because, my mom told me this, if she would ever act up, her mom would call her malcriada, which means, and sometimes my mom calls me that, it's like, I'm malcriada, which is like poorly raised or like badly educated, like, but she would retort to her mother, you're the one who raised me.
Yeah.
What does that say about you? Like, excuse me. So that's probably what this character is going with,
Some fun words are scrumpulous. Wait, did I say that right?
Really?
Yeah, scrumpulous.
I didn't see
Scrupulous.
Oh, scrupulous.
Squeak.
Scrupulous.
We're gonna just like cut that out. Okay. Fun words. Scrupulous.
Yeah.
And
got those scruples.
Magnanimous.
I love that one.
Yeah.
Generous or forgiving, especially towards a rival or less powerful person. Charitable. Kind of sounds like something you would use to describe, like, I don't know, a religious figure. Perhaps a saint. And Poirot himself uses that to describe himself, which is perfect. Oh, smote. I love that. Yes. So they Hastings and Poirot agree that chocolate box shall be the code for check your self-esteem, Poirot. You're getting a little bit too egotistical. And when Poirot immediately boosts his own ego, or like speaks with a lot of conceit, Hastings murmurs chocolate box, and Poirot says, "Pardon, mon ami?" And Hastings says, "I looked at Poirot's innocent face as he bent forward inquiringly, and his heart smote me." And so smite means to strike with a firm blow. And I was like, "Aw, that's such a weird thing for you to say, sir. His heart is striking me right now." Not your heart is being stricken, but I thought that was interesting. Oh, and another fun word, toddy. His hot toddy in the pink china cup.
Yes.
I thought that was such a cute little image. I was like,
well, I had to look up what toddy was.
What is it exactly?
It's a cocktail.
Cocktail?
And I was going to mention that I didn't know it, but then I was like, wait, it might be just because I'm young. So,
I thought it was just, because I thought he was drinking chocolate, and I thought that was
no, Poirot is drinking chocolate, but Hastings is drinking a toddy with is a, like, cocktail.
I see. Yes. Just, how they describe Mr. John Wilson as, a regular John Bull Englishman, and that he spoke in very British French. I thought that was adorable. And then also, there is no fanatic like a religious fanatic. That just ties into the religious theme. And then also, another little idea came to me. You smile at my little ideas. It felt like he was talking directly to the reader there.
I mean, he's talking to Hastings, right?
Yes. But also, I felt like the reader, any reader who would have been like familiar enough
with like his little yes.
It's like, oh, you're on the trail. Thank you for joining episode in which we discussed the chocolate box.
Catch us later on the Christie Club.